All right, happy Thursday evening, everybody. July 10th. I still don't have power at my apartment. However, I do have my big battery power source thing that I take camping, so I plugged all of my lights into that. So we get lights. And then I guess I'll just upload this video when my Wi-Fi comes back on. I'm going to talk about two articles tonight. The second one is referenced in the first. The first was from either yesterday or the day before by Jonathan V. Last over at the Bulwark. If you are not subscribed to the Bulwark, you should subscribe to the Bulwark, and not just so you can hear Tim Miller's podcast every day. They put up a lot of amazing stuff. Thebulwark.com. So Jonathan V. Last, who goes by JVL, he puts up a daily newsletter every morning called The Triad. And his triad from a couple days ago was entitled "The American Police State is Here." I think it's from Tuesday. It's the big beautiful bill was signed into law at the end of last week, and now ICE, which has been around for 23 or 24 years, it came into existence following 9/11, is going to be the largest law enforcement agency at the federal level in the United States, the largest law enforcement agency anywhere in the United States, and I think pretty much anywhere in the world. Its budget now is going to exceed that of the Israeli Defense Department, which is fighting arguably two wars. Well, slaughtering civilians in an area where they're not permitted to leave or defend themselves, and bombing another country because reasons, I guess, if we're going to call those wars. ICE is about to eclipse the FBI as America's most important law enforcement agency. That is bad. That is super duper bad. He makes some really interesting points in here that Donald Trump's goal. So when Donald Trump was elected and came into office, and he says, Kash Patel is going to be my director of the FBI, and I am going to use Kash Patel to corrupt the FBI for my own ends. That is turning out to be much more difficult than he originally thought, because the FBI has been around for 100 years. It has institutional memory. It has an institutional reputation. It has standards. It has a history and an interaction with the Constitution, except for that one part in the 60s, that makes the FBI, that organization, very difficult to corrupt in the way that Donald Trump wants to corrupt it. ICE isn't saddled with that kind of baggage. His goal is to have ICE supplant FBI in national law enforcement. This is a big deal, because the FBI is a professionalized organization with strict standards and a well-defined mission, while ICE, more or less, is a national brute squad. And bear in mind, something like $200 billion is getting thrown at ICE over the next 4 or 5 years, including like $45 billion for detention facilities, while we're taking $1 trillion away from Medicaid, while we're basically defunding the National Health Services, the CDC, the EPA, FEMA, and we're doing away with the Department of Education. What could $45 billion a year accomplish at the Department of Education? And Trump's voters have been like, we'll take a pass on that. For more than 100 years, the FBI has been the only significant federal law enforcement branch, because criminal law enforcement happened mostly at the state and local levels. We saw this recently in Los Angeles. It happens at the local level, and Donald Trump's like, fuck that. I need 4,000 National Guardsmen and 200 Marines, who he sent to Los Angeles, who since the day he sent them there have been standing around doing literally nothing, guarding buildings that nobody is at. FBI, you need at least a college degree and or a master's or a law degree or something like that, their recruitment standards are incredibly high. Incredibly high. You don't just walk in off the fucking street and apply to be an FBI special agent. That just doesn't happen. ICE, on the other hand, apparently has no educational requirements whatsoever. I'm going to break this one up into a couple parts. Then there's training. When you get accepted into the FBI, you move to Quantico outside of Washington, D.C. They live, eat, sleep, and breathe training for 5 months. These aren't 40-hour weeks. It is total immersion. It's kind of like basic training for the Army, but the Army is 10 weeks. Quantico is 20. And the FBI is within the Department of Justice. And the FBI director, when they are appointed by a president, their term is 10 years, unless you're Donald Trump, and you fire one and force another one to resign, the second one that you handpicked. And the first one handed you the 2016 election on a silver fucking platter with his investigations into Hillary Clinton, his press conferences about that, and reopening that investigation like 12 days before Election Day in 2016. That's James Comey. And then Donald Trump turns around and fucking fires him. And Comey's out giving a speech in Southern California and finds out that he got fired because he saw it on the news. So Donald Trump now, we've gone from James Comey, who is an unrepentant misogynist. If you look at his treatment of Hillary Clinton and Martha Stewart relative to his treatment of criminals who are men, James Comey is a fucking misogynist. And we went from him to Christopher Wray, who I'm sure I would disagree with him on some things. He's a lifelong Republican, but he was a professional. So we've gone from James Comey to Christopher Wray to Kash fucking Patel, who constantly looks like a combination of a possum with some kind of bug-eyed disorder and somebody who realizes that wasn't just a fart. Across the board, management standards, management styles, hiring standards, training standards, everything at the FBI is up here and has been for decades. ICE hasn't even been around for 25 years. And now ICE is going to double the size. They're going to double the number of ICE agents that they have now currently over the next 1 to 2 years, which means they're going to lower hiring standards. They're going to lower the amount of training these amosexual gravy seals, Al-Qaeda green buffets are getting. This is going to be really, really bad. And that is now going to be the largest law enforcement agency on the planet with a budget that exceeds that of the Israeli military. Cool. I'm sure it will be fine. FBI directors are confirmed by the Senate. They're nominated by the president. They're confirmed by the Senate. They have been historically, well, I don't even know if we can say that, allegedly, historically independent from the president. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover, he was FBI director for 40 years. He was FBI director for a long time. The first one who served forever when he wasn't vacationing and cross-dressing with his live-in boyfriend, Clyde Tolson, I think the guy's name was. So the first and longest-serving director of the FBI, allegedly, was a homosexual in a long-term committed relationship during a period of time when homosexuals were not permitted to do that publicly or, go to the movies on a Saturday night with your live-in partner and both of you wearing dresses. So, that's neither here nor there. ICE was created in 2003, so it's 22 years old. Up until last year, ICE operated with an annual budget of $8 billion with roughly 20,000 employees. That's going to double in size coming up. The FBI is made up of highly educated professionals who operate independently but under the general auspices of the Department of Justice, which at least in theory is run by officers of the court. ICE is made up of cops, military veterans, and whoever can be rounded up at the local bus station. It's run out of the mission-ambiguous Department of Homeland Security, headed up by a woman who shot a puppy in the face and killed a goat in the similar manner and shot and killed a horse. Within months, ICE will have twice as many agents as the FBI, and it will have its own huge and growing prison system. They are going to run and operate and populate their own prisons. This is scary as fuck. These are competing law enforcement operations. One of them is relatively committed to liberalism and the rule of law, despite being staffed almost exclusively by Republicans. The other is less scrupulous and more malleable, and that's the one which will be dominant in America just a few months from now. What do you think is going to happen? And then he goes on to talk about this article by Garrett Graff, which I'm going to now make a separate video on. Garrett Graff is a reporter who has been reporting on federal law enforcement for the last 2.5 decades. We have a secret national police force now that is going to be the largest law enforcement agency in the United States, probably the largest law enforcement agency on the entire planet, with an operating budget annually that exceeds that of the Israeli military. Donald Trump's personal private police force that answers to him and wears masks and wears no identifying insignia on their non-matching uniforms. Things are about to get dramatically worse at a dramatically faster pace.